Welcome to the Moonshot Podcast, the podcast where we explore business growth, inspire innovative marketing strategies, and explore the world of company culture. Now here are your hosts, serial entrepreneurs and best-selling authors, James Philip Arbuckle and Kane Carpenter.
I know you're not a big hip-hop guy, but out of all the tracks that came out, I think Chris Brown won this round. So I'm going to send you a track.
Okay.
When we're done. Funny enough, I was talking to my boxing coach, and we're talking about this whole, like, hip-hop World War III was what's going on right now. And we talked about Chris Brown, and it's like, the guy can sing. He can sing, he can dance, he can rap. My coach is like, the kid can act too, so he can, like, do all this stuff. And, like, no one was expecting Chris Brown to come out with a diss track. So whatever, you had Drake and Kendrick and there's Rick Ross. Everyone's in the mix right now. And I know you don't follow, like, hip-hop as much as I do. But there was probably a year ago you started hearing about the decline in hip-hop sales. And there's some things that don't make sense. Like, do you feel... Well, you probably don't listen to Taylor Swift either, but do you feel like Taylor Swift should be this billion-dollar artist?
That's hard to answer. No, there's better music in my opinion, for sure.
But you see where, and I'm not saying hip-hop's jumping to Taylor Swift, but you can see that there's these, like, large patches of people can just swing over here. It was like EDM for a while. People were going like dubstep and all this different type of EDM, and you feel like maybe EDM's faded out a tiny bit, or certain types of EDM, and now the crowd's over here, and there's just so much music out there now. It's not hard for someone to say, look, maybe a bulk of the hip hop stuff that was coming out wasn't that good, but I still want new music. So, I mean, I don't know if do you go from, like, hip hop to country? Probably not, but there's other places you can go fill that void. And then you saw, excuse me, some of the hip hop sales starting to fall off, and people in the industry were talking about it. People I know in the industry were talking about it, and I'm like, man, at some point, there's got to be something that reinvigorates it. And 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 diss tracks came out in, like, the last month or something. And it almost seems like it was planned. Like, maybe the first one started it off, but would you believe, like, somewhere in, like, the corporate world or in boardrooms, they're sitting around trying to think of a strategy on how to reinvigorate the industry?
Oh, I think it happens. Yeah, for sure.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised where they're like, look, let's just go after everybody. Let's get everybody in it. And you saw, like, the amount of news is generated, and there's, album sales and clicks and views and shares, and social media is blowing up. But the problem is, like, do you think that's sustainable?
Really, it depends, I suppose. But I mean, if you're saying that everybody's dropping diss tracks about each other, and you think that that's all, then yeah, it probably isn't sustainable.
At some point, it's, if you haven't, I probably have. We used to sit on the corner and, like, just bag on each other, and sooner or later you run out of mom jokes, believe it or not. So it's like, they're going to take their shots. There's only so much dirt you can dig up on everybody, and it's cool. It's brought some excitement back to hip hop, and it's got some eyes back on the ball, but it's not really sustainable. And it goes back to, I'm thinking, like, strategy, right? Did people get together and kind of plan this? But at the same time, it's a Super Bowl commercial, right? It's what happens if you spend $5 million on a Super Bowl commercial, everyone sees it, but your product's not good.
Waste of money.
And that's kind of where I'm like, if, I mean, there has been some good music that's come out. Like, you can't say that it's all been trash. Um, but the opinion of a lot of people, it things seemed like there was like the quality of the music or the creativity was maybe in a slight, it wasn't a decline, right? So you can get things reinvigorated from a strategy standpoint with all the beef and all the diss tracks, but if we can't get back to, I think this even applies to like what's going on in pop music almost everywhere. Like I used to play like BPM channel 52 in my car when I'm driving around. Kane, it's the same shit over and over and over and over. Like they must have a template on how to make EDM, and it's like, man, I can't even turn that channel on anymore. It's like, man, so I think across the board, like, have we just done it all and said it all? And
Yeah. Sorry, James.
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, would you call it something like a nostalgia pop, something like that, where you can drum up like a little bit of like I imagine it's like when a formerly well-known artist will show up at like the Super Bowl, and then they'll get a pop for however long, 6 months or whatever, and then they just kind of fade back into oblivion.
Yeah, I mean, I think you saw Eminem and Dre do that at the Super Bowl, and then songs pop back up number one for a while, and now it kind of fades off again. But like, if you don't, I think anything in business, right? We're thinking of strategy right now and longevity, trying to maintain and hold on to market share. If you don't get back to making a great product, then these kind of gimmicks in the middle, they just end up being gimmicks, and they're not sustainable, and they're going to give you a little pop, and then if you're going to go right back to like not making great music, you're going to fade out. So my first thought was like, so much stuff was going on. Like, I felt like this was a plan in a boardroom somewhere. Somewhere there's a WeChat with like 100 people in it. That's like how we're going to set this thing off and reignite some spark in the industry and get people excited about hip hop again. And then I'm looking over the Taylor Swift stuff, and the amount of money that whole like machine brings in. Where some people would say it's okay music, but some people would say maybe it's not great music, but it's $1 billion machine, and that is like sucking the like energy and the money out of the system right now.
So let me ask you this, James. If you compare the Taylor Swift stuff to hip hop, like is it that the characters aren't as appealing as, say, a Taylor Swift, or has society moved on from that kind of music?
That's a good question. I mean, like hip hop's also got so many different there's different things in hip hop, right? You think about like 50 Cent did so many club bangers, and I can think back to the memories of how many songs he had out, going out to the bars and the restaurants and the clubs at that time. Man, everywhere you went, there was some like 50 Cent Scott Storch thing, and till this day, they're still club bangers. And you don't hear a tremendous amount of music like that anymore. People complain about the mumble rappers and this and that. I love the Griselda guys, like what Benny and Conway's doing. I kind of felt like they brought back that like 90s boom bap kind of hip hop, but that's not like a huge market for that type of stuff. And you got Drake, who's kind of pop rap, whatever you want to call it. Still a massive artist. And maybe part of society has moved on from it. But I just think of when you put out good music, any music, right? I mean, a hit is a hit. And I just feel like we're not putting out a lot of hits.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, right? Like, so my latest kick has been like the 70s playlist on Spotify, and I wonder, like, to your point though, like if a really great song in the style of like a 70s pop track came out, like, would it do anything?
I bet people have tried. You just don't know about it.
Yeah, right.
But then it's like, are we... Like, I'm an audiophile. I got subwoofers everywhere. I got stereo equipment. Like, I love music. Like, I'm building a music studio. Like, I love music, so I'm biased on that side. But let's say you're not that person where, you used to sit around and listen to a record or a cassette or a CD, and that time has now been replaced with watching TikTok.
Seriously.
And like all of a sudden I don't have time to really consume music and really get to know artists. And, you even get obsessed with an artist when you're a certain type of person, right? It's you like the cover art, you want the lyrics, and like that still exists, but not like it used to, because we're too consumed with, what is it, 2 or 4 hours a day the average person spends on social media?
Oh, is it that high?
It's high. So, yeah, and you might be consuming that music you might be hearing some of the music on social media, right? But half the time you're looking at funny memes and getting like, you're not sitting around listening to music anymore. You're watching bullshit. So now all of a sudden you can see what the whole music industry kind of takes a hit, and the Drakes and like Taylor Swift do okay. There are these big polarizing figures, and a handful of other people put out some good music and hits, but everyone else, if you put out mediocre music, there's no time in the day for that, right?
Yeah, it's good. Actually, going back to strategy, then, so if this revival, say, or pop is driven by diss tracks and things like that, would the hip hop community be better served leaning into like 60-second things that can go onto social media? Is that more enduring?
If they sound good.
Back to that point. Yeah.
And it's always I think as you get older, you're like, oh, the new music sucks. I think that applies to a lot of people, regardless of what genre of music it is. But you've heard a lot of people, especially like, back in the day, you had like boy bands and like Justin Timberlake and all these guys, and whatever, Destiny's Child. There's so many like groups when you look back, and you're kind of like, well, where is all of that right now, and the quantity of it. It applies to hip hop. It applies to pop, the EDM scene. It's just you really seen it like affect hip hop, and it's like, okay, so what's the industry going to do now? And it's like, okay, they're gonna start these wars, and they're gonna go on for a while, but they never last forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, is that sustainable from a strategy standpoint, looking at, what you're playing in the music industry? Look, back in the day, like, think like when 50 Cent got shot, like, hell, if you got shot, it made you instantly credible as a rapper. And like, how many people probably tried to get shot to get credit, and no one cares anymore. Like, oh, you got shot? Like, there's like 10 other rappers that got shot. Like, there's at some point we're running out of things to do to make people interesting. Like, what is your story? Is the music good? Or is it possible that we're just at a point where we've already said everything?
Yeah.
You ever like, where's the great like love ballads and some of the pop music, and has it just not all been said? So can we not and this affects all types of music. We just ran out of things to say. Like, do you think it was easier creating music in the 70s and 80s versus like now?
Well, that would take us on a different tangent, like around musicianship.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I'm not a particularly big fan of the Bee Gees, but they were on the radio or on my Spotify at lunch. And so, but if you like listen to that recording, there's like actual music, like instruments. You can hear it, like the music, the echo in the room, because there's music and instruments.
Resonance.
Like, and can you make a case that musicianship is gone because of how digital you can be with creating music now? And because maybe musicians today are not so grounded in their ability to play an instrument, that inevitably quality declines. I'm sounding like an old man, but that's another thought I have.
I mean, it's possible. I think maybe the effects of like, look, some people do sound great with autotune. But like when you look back and like, how do you compare it to someone that can just sing?
Celine Dion or Whitney Houston.
That can just sing, like, and how do you like the raw talent of that? And The same thing, like the difference between me making a beat with drum samples versus watching someone play drums live. Like to see like a live band actually playing all it's just a different experience. I don't know.
But you don't equate that to quality though.
Maybe partly. It's Drake got huge without having a live band playing in the background, right?
That's fair. Yeah.
Not that size means that's how good you are. But there's just something missing. I don't know if it's we talk about characters a lot in golf. Like, are we running out of interesting people? Where's the characters, or is it the musicality of not playing like live stuff? Is it we just ran out of interesting things to say? Did we just get lazy? I don't know.
That's a good question.
They've said like rap's dead like 10 times since it's been invented. It's not going anywhere, but it's you have a lot of people talk about it being in decline the last 12, 18 months, and all of a sudden this pops off, and you got people jumping in. It's like, who did what? And it's so messy right now. It just seems like maybe there was like some people saying, "Hey man, I'm coming for you. Let's light a fire back under this industry."
So last question for me. When you say coming for you, is it like the Tupac Biggie level, kind of like that kind of stuff?
I mean, I hope not. Like, you don't want it to get to that point.
Oh, but the rhetoric is like that. I guess I have to listen to it.
And some of the stuff's getting pretty aggressive. Like, it's not
interesting.
So there's like people will like you'll do subliminal stuff where you just don't directly say it, but you're kind of taking a shot at somebody. When Chris Brown came out, he was addressing directly, right? Like,
Interesting.
and like, you certainly don't want it to spill over into the streets and whatnot. But for all you know, some of these people could be sending texts back and forth right now, like, "Hey, oh, you got me," or maybe it's just 100% real and this is organic and it popped off like this. It's some part of me doesn't doubt that there was conversation going around, like, let's just all go at each other and try to you think about how much more money you're like, even drug dealers are like, "Hey, let's stop fighting and just focus on the money." And this is kind of the opposite. It's like, well, let's diss each other and then get the money.
Yeah.
Because you think about how much more money was probably made and just even the last 30 days because of sucking the amount of people back into what's going on right now.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like some point I say, yeah, we'll do this to get paid. Maybe it's real though. It just seems to be like a lot of stuff going on at once to not say there's not some force somewhere trying to push this. I don't know. If it is, interesting strategy. It's why I want to do the episode of love music, love hip hop, and I like, you're seeing the kind of competition rise and it's pushing people to get creative and do things. But to me, like, where's that? I'm always looking for that business aspect of it because money was printed in the last 30 days because of this. And I forgot about Chris Brown. Like I got so many tracks in my I forgot about Chris Brown, and now all of a sudden I went back and probably played 3, 4, or 5 of his tracks. So by him doing that, kind of put himself back in the light. So you can see why there's like this financial benefit to doing this.
Yeah,
we got to
super
find a way
interesting.
What's that?
Super interesting.
I don't know. We got to find like a way to like do this in a corporate world. Some way to like spark up sales. Like have Marriott take a shot at Four Seasons or something. I don't know.
The issue is we just get sued.
That's the unfortunate part, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm gonna send you a couple tracks.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, I'll catch you.